these folks have suffered is that they're Baha'is. Only Baha'is. The image you see in front of you here comes from the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran in the 19th century, and shows a spike being driven through the body, a living body of a believer. In those days, it was quite customary for the authorities to charge people with various tools to handle the Baha'is. So someone who would be a carpenter would attack the Baha'is with a saw or hammer, and this was not an uncommon practice. A Baha'i father, here's a picture of 4 Baha'is in chains. Baha'i father and son left in chains after being arrested with fellow Baha'is in a photograph taken around 1896. Both were subsequently executed. This is a more contemporary picture, the structure of the National Baha'i Center in Tehran, Iran, circa 1955. And the authorities in Iran have systematically tried to uproot the Baha'is in every possible way. In those days, it was simply taking down the structures of Baha'i buildings, and increasingly today, it's a question of taking away any right for education. Baha'is lose all pensions, have lost all pensions. They have to repay back the salaries, they have lost their university degrees, they have to pay back for the education that they've received. All these things are in the realm of existence today, yes. And this is a picture, a portrait of where the Baha'i faith began in 1844. A beautiful house, of course. For us, it's very, very sacred. It's the most sacred spot. And outside of the house, this shows inside of the house, where actually shows the birth of the Baha'i faith, 23rd of May, 1844. And the next picture shows the systematic destruction of that house, the most sacred place of all, to be destroyed in this ruthless manner. And here's another picture of the shrine of the Bab in Shiraz, and demolished by the Iranian authorities in 1979. This is a picture of a decree against the Baha'is. In fact, in some, not too long ago, to qualify for a job in Iran, the killing of a Baha'i would be one of those qualifications to help you get a job. More homes burned to the ground. Last year, some 50 Baha'i homes were burned to the ground. Even the local population resisted that, tried to resist that, but they could not fight the agents. I don't know if I can go through this talk. Really, it's so heartrending. By cemeteries, orchards are being cut down. Orchards belong to the Baha'is. Depriving them of all livelihood. This is the purpose. If you're hired a Baha'i, then you did not need to pay the Baha'i for his employment. Destruction of Baha'i businesses. And Shaheen Dalvad, one of the 10 Baha'i women executed in Shiraz on 18 June 1983. The primary charge against her. Teaching Baha'i children's classes. Mona, Mahmoudina, 17 years old, one of those 10 Baha'i women executed in Shiraz. The primary charge against her was again teaching Baha'i children's classes. More recently, Haleh Rui, Sasan Takva, and Raha Sabet were taken to custody by the Iranian government in November 2007. They're serving a 4-year sentence on charges connected entirely with the practice of practicing the Baha'i faith. They were teaching literacy classes involving both Baha'is and non-Baha'is. Teaching literacy classes, thrown 4 years in jail. Currently serving, these are pictures of 7 Baha'is. Currently serving a sentence of 20 years each in one of Iran's filthiest and most disease-ridden prisons. They have been convicted of baseless charge of espionage against Israel or for Israel, insulting religious sensibilities, and propaganda against the system. Children are bullied in schools in Iran. There are state-sponsored anti-Baha'i banners. and here are the defenders outside of Iran. And I'll read some of the things they said. Shea Blair, the UK, said, "Yet the Baha'i faith, which has roots in Iran, is a gentle religion which emphasizes the spiritual unity of all humankind and builds on the prophets of many faiths, including Jesus and Muhammad. It poses no threat to the Iranian regime. The peaceful, constructive lives led by millions of Baha'is in other countries contradict the fears of the Iranian regime. Iran's disregard for its own laws, let alone its human rights obligations, expose its religious fanaticism." Hillary Clinton also spoke for the Baha'i community and how the United States would come to its defense. Next one. Journalist Sabiri recalled the kindness shown to her and other prison mates by Mavash Sadet. Now, she is an American journalist who was thrown in jail in Iran. And so she talks about her cellmate who was a Baha'i. It has been reported that over time, the women earned the respect and friendship of even the most hardened inmates on their floor. "I'm not surprised," she says, "to hear this, remembering the generosity and compassion that Mavash and Fariba showed the cellmates of in prison, including Oksana Sabiri. They lifted our spirits, gave us hope, and took care of me when I was on a hunger strike. Last month, when authorities at Raji Shah prison, that's the most crucial prison, the most critical prison, announced that inmates cut off their contact with Mavash and Fariba, fellow prisoners refused and continued to seek them out. It was perhaps because of this that the two Baha'i women were then transferred to a more brutal section of the prison complex." Yes. Rainn Wilson, David will talk more about Rainn Wilson, actor Rainn Wilson. He says, it's a bit in the interview, he says, go back, yeah. Thank you. "It's a bit strange for me, to say the least, a comic character actor best known for playing weirdos with bad haircuts, getting all serious to talk about the persecution of the fellow members of my religious faith. Dear readers of CNN, I assure you that what I'm writing about is no joking matter, or some hoax perpetrated by a paper-selling, bear-fearing, Battlestar Galactica-obsessed meat farmer. I am a member of the Baha'i faith," he says. Now, as I mentioned, this all happened in Iran, and needs to say the Muslim authorities did not like the Baha'is very much. I accuse them of heresy and apostasy. Tens of thousands were killed in the early years of the faith, and the persecutions have continued off and on for the past 150 years, friends. Next one. Ban Ki-moon. For the fourth year, the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has strongly criticized Iran's record on human rights, saying violations are continued and intensified over the last 12 months. Iran has stepped up its crackdown on human rights defenders. So there are lawyers hired to defend the Baha'is, and so the lawyers are thrown in prison. Then those lawyers have to get other lawyers to defend them in prison. He said he was deeply troubled by recent developments, which include a notable increase in the country's use of the death penalty, along with the rise of unfair trials, amputations, and the use of torture, arbitrary arrest, and detention. And because Baha'i is an unrecognized religious minority, they are more exposed than any other group in Iran. And increasingly, education has been limited to the Baha'is, and David will talk about that report. Next one.